So the new figure is 159,000 with other items?
You said
2 from 11 is 9, 8 from 13 is 5.
David, you just have to touch the
No.
the left side.
He's got it already.
Yeah. He's got resolutions to sign.
What, are we changing numbers here on the run?
No, it's just an adjustment.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The hour is 7 o'clock, and as mayor, I hereby call to order the meeting of the Laconia City Council scheduled for July 11, 2016. We'll begin our meeting tonight, as always, with a salute to our American flag. Please rise and join Councilor David Bounds in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For the record, we'll note that the minutes of tonight's meeting are being kept by Deputy City Clerk Stacy Anders, and I would ask that she please call the roll.
Here.
Here. Present.
Present.
Present. Here.
Sounds like the hearers need help tonight, so I'm going to go here. Let the record show that all 6 members of the City Council are present tonight and a quorum has been established. Also note for the record that the council is joined at the front table tonight by City Manager Scott Myers and the City Finance Officer Donna Witteman. First item of regular business is acceptance of minutes of previous meetings. In your packets, you have the regular and special budget meeting minutes for our 2 meetings on June 27th. Minutes of those meetings were distributed to the council on July 6th. No changes were suggested to the clerk's office prior to this meeting, and so I will offer the councilors a last chance to make any changes, and in lieu of that, I will declare that both sets of minutes have been approved as submitted by the city clerk. We have no items on consent and action calendar tonight, so we're going to go right to citizen comments for matters not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to address the city council on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda? I'll tell you what, we do have a couple special new guests tonight. Why don't I deviate from the agenda just a little bit and recognize our former superintendent of schools, Phil McCormick. And Phil, could you come up and introduce the 2 folks you have with you tonight to the council? Hate to bring you out of retirement again to do this.
Right. Good evening. Good to see you all again. I'm pleased to announce and introduce to you Christine Bluen, who is the business administrator for SAU 30. Christine comes to the district most recently from Newmarket. She is a resident of the Lakes region. Christine?
Thank you and welcome.
Dr. Brendan Minahan is the new superintendent of schools. He comes to us most recently from the Peterborough-Conval SAU 1 regional school district. An experienced administrator in the state, highly respected, and I think the fit for both these 2 is going to be great here in Laconia. And I know they're looking forward to working with you, so thank you.
Dr. Minahan, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming. Sure we'll see you both again here. Welcome to Laconia. We're very happy to have you. Anyone else? Citizen comments for matters not on tonight's agenda? Okay, we're going to go on to interviews. We have 4 interviews scheduled for tonight. First up, we have Lisa Morin. Is Lisa here? Yes. Hi, Lisa. She is seeking appointment to a regular position on the Conservation Commission for a 3-year term expiring at the end of August 2019. Would you state your name and address for the record, please, and tell us why you would like to be reappointed to the Conservation Commission?
My name is Lisa Moran, and I reside at 42 Valley Street in Lakeport. I enjoy my position on the Conservation Commission. I feel that the other members and myself work well. We've been there for a while now, and the chairman has been putting us in a direction that has us very involved in the community, and I would like to maintain those projects and stay involved on those. And I just think it's a really good organization to be part of.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Moran?
Just want to thank her for coming forward.
We all do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ori Gibbs, seeking reappointment to a regular position on the Zoning Board of Adjustment, a 3-year term that will expire at the end of August 2019. Welcome. Again, could you state name and address for the record, please?
My name is Ori Gibbs. I live at 167 Tiffany Drive. I've been on the Zoning Board of Adjustment now 6 years. It's such fun. Seems like longer. Anyway, the Zoning Board of Adjustment takes a while to get up to speed, and I think now, the last year in particular, I'm really familiar with procedures and the ordinances, and I'm contributing more, and I think I can continue to make positive contributions to the board.
Thank you. Councilor Bear.
Hi, Ori.
Hi.
We never seem to hear too much from the zoning. Could you give us an idea of what's going on at the present time?
On zoning?
Yeah. Are you involved in any particular projects?
I'm personally not. I know that Suzanne, the secretary and co-chair, has been involved in a number of projects. Because I'm still working, I don't have the time during the day to meet to do things like that. But they were involved. We were involved with the reworking of the sign ordinance, the infamous chicken. The chicken, what's the word I'm looking for, initiative. And we will be having changes, I think, coming to signage, because before Shanna had left, she had said that there were cases in Arizona that would probably impact how we are able to define signage. That hasn't happened yet. It seems like it's not filtering down through yet, but that's something that we'll be looking at. And the rezoning efforts that were involved with over in the commercial resort, particularly on Weirs Boulevard, and in that area, was involved in looking at that.
Good, thank you.
I have two more. We'll go down around the table here. Councilor Hamlin.
Question on the Belknap house on Court Street.
Yes.
You know about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How did they come up with those, I don't know if you want to call them specifications, but conditions for the Belknap house on how it was going to be used, or?
Without having don't commit them to memory. And honestly, without having the material in front of me, I couldn't tell you exactly what the conditions were, but we deliberate, we ask for the presentation, we deliberate based on the questions that we ask of the applicant, and if we feel that there are certain conditions that need to be placed on it, particularly in view of how a property may be used in the future if the current applicant leaves, a future applicant coming in, a future owner coming in because it's granted a variance and a use for a particular property, that carries over to a new owner. So we're always concerned about how the variances and the exceptions that we grant might affect a future owner.
How did that, the conditions, I don't even know how the conversation started, but maybe it was going to be a local homeless shelter? How did that end up being a Belknap County homeless shelter where we have no clue how it's going to affect Laconia?
Again, I'd have to have the materials in front of me. I'm sorry, I don't commit
Okay.
them all to memory. I know where to find the material if I need to go back and look at it. It's the same as when at work. I've been doing real estate for 30 years, title searches and statutes and that sort of, looking at statutes and that sort of thing. I don't commit it all to memory, but I know that if I had known you were going to request information on that, I would have brought my files with me on that.
Okay, thank you, Ori.
Yes,
Councilor
Tiffany
Bullock.
Drive, where's that?
Tiffany Drive is in Briarcrest.
Briarcrest.
I'm right on the Belmont line. I'm actually in Laconia, but right on the Belmont line. Yeah, I am. I'm in the same neighborhood as Mrs. Bear.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for coming tonight. Brianna Henderson is seeking appointment to a regular position on the Downtown TIF Advisory Board, a 3-year term that will expire at the end of August 2019. Welcome.
Hello. Brianna Henderson. I live at 36 Whipple. So far, I've served 2 years on the TIF Advisory Board, and it's been extremely educational, and I think I can continue to be a part of the positive things that it's been doing for the downtown district in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Henderson? Councilor Bear.
Because you're new, serving the first new, since we changed the makeup, how do you find the workings of the TIF district? Do you find you have enough input or cooperation?
I find it to be a very open conversation on the various topics we have on our agendas. For the most part, I find it extremely educational, finding out, being able to hear the fellow business owners downtown and their opinions and being able to convey them, as well as seeing the city side of what they have to deal with when it comes to completing things and the inner workings of construction. And for the first time in my life, I'm looking at things and wondering how they plow them and things like that. So it's definitely a very open conversation.
Good.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Lastly, we have Charlie St. Clair seeking reappointment to a regular position on the Downtown TIF Advisory Board for a 3-year term that would expire at the end of August 2019. Mr. St. Clair, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I'm reapplying.
Address, please.
Oh, my address, 792 North Main Street.
Thank you.
And I have a business here at 601 Main Street. It's been interesting 2 years that I've been on there. And I agree with Bree, there's a lot of frank conversations in there. We are not always on the same page as what we talk about as far as agreeing or not agreeing, but it's a really good work in progress, I think. And I think that the people that are on the TIF group represent a lot of different backgrounds. That works out well. But I will take a shot. I know you have a lot of good city employees, from the city manager right on down. And but I got to tell you, Kevin Dunleavy, I don't know how he keeps it all together in his mind, but at every meeting I've been to, he's always got all the facts and figures that we would need as a group of citizens to explain what's going on. And plus he's the secretary. He keeps the minutes. So he's a big part of the TIF committee, even though he doesn't have to come up before you and be appointed. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Any questions or comments for Mr. St. Clair?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay, I will say to all four of you that by council, I'm sorry, Councilor Hamlin.
I got one quick question, and that was for Lisa. On her application, it says mailing address of Belmont. I mean, what?
Yeah, that's been for quite a while now, and when I first moved into Valley Street,
Okay.
they informed me that I needed to put a mailbox down there, and I was working in Concord at the time, and it was just easier for me to get a mailbox in Belmont.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, for the four of you, by council rule, we interview for positions at one meeting and actually vote on elections at the following meeting. So we will be taking up these appointments at our meeting on July 25th. You're welcome to come to that meeting. It is not necessary that you be there, but you're welcome to. And I'm sure these votes will be a routine matter as far as the council is concerned. So you're welcome to come, but it's not in any way required, and we appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you. Okay, public hearing. At our last meeting, we had a first reading and discussion regarding Resolution 2016-19 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend donations on behalf of the city in the amount of $3,535.97 from Joyce Donahue in memory of Kenneth Glidden for the purchase of a scoreboard at the Memorial Park baseball field. Notice of this public hearing was made in the June 29, 2016 edition of the Laconia Daily Sun. It was also posted at City Hall, the Gale Memorial Library, the Laconia Community Center, and at the offices of the Laconia School District. I'm going to open this public hearing at 15 minutes past 7 and ask if there's anyone in the audience tonight who would like to address the council on this matter. No one has approached, so I'm going to declare the public hearing closed at 7:16 p.m. and note for the record that we will take this matter up tonight again under new business. We're down to mayor's report. A couple of quick items here. I'd like to report that as far as the state school property is concerned, that there was a meeting, or at least was scheduled to be a meeting in the governor's office today, that had to do with the formation of an advisory committee regarding the state school property that is to be formed under the guidance of the Administrative Services Department would be responsible for advising that department as to what parameters should be put specifically on the sale of the property, and also with putting out a request for proposal to get a brokerage firm to actually represent the state for the sale of that property. I spoke with Executive Counselor Joe Kenny earlier today, and he indicated that it was his recommendation to the governor's office that that committee contain no more than 7 people, and that it hold no more than 4 meetings, and complete its work by Thanksgiving. And one of those 7 seats on that committee he is recommending would be a Laconia resident, or representing Laconia's interests on that. The other 6 seats would be primarily representing other state departments that have an interest in the facility, for instance, including the Department of Health and Human Services, because they have the so-called designated receiver facility still operating on that property. So this is to provide guidance to the Administrative Services Department as to what the parameters of the sale might be. Not necessarily on price so much as stipulations about what conditions that the state might require a purchaser honor as part of the sale. Okay? Second thing I'd like to note, and this is kind of a personal note, I think we've mentioned this before, that I thought of it when I saw Charlie St. Clair earlier tonight, that our own Department of Public Works has done a terrific job, and had by Memorial Day, of putting up the new Route 3 business signs up and down Union Avenue, and they look terrific, and I think are extremely helpful, and it's nice to see us actually matching up with Google Maps in terms of what to call the roadways through Laconia, so that's a nice feature too. However, it does leave one issue that, although not a big deal, that seems to me to be incredibly confusing and unnecessary, and that is that, for whatever reason, as far as the state is concerned, Highway 107 which begins down at the Mass border and winds its way gradually up through the state, and enters Laconia from Gilmanton, from the Four Corners, and then travels up through South Main Street. And then when it intersects with 106, where logic would say it probably ought to end, and just say end of 107, for some mysterious reason, it continues jointly with 106 up to the landmark inn, takes a right down Union Avenue, and goes all the way down up to McIntyre Circle, where suddenly a sign appears that says end of 107. So we still have lots of signs up going in both directions on 107, on Union Avenue, that refer to Highway 107 for no apparent reason. And it would occur to me, although this isn't a high priority type thing, that maybe we ought to take up the matter at some point of advising the state that they should end Route 107 where it intersects with 106 and be done with it, and not try to confuse motorists anymore. Difficult enough as it is. So sort of a little pet peeve here that I'm weighing in on tonight, and perhaps we could take that up at some point.
How would the person be picked for representing the city on the state school property?
That would probably come through me. I haven't been told, or it hasn't been decided, but I'm assuming it would come through me, since I've been the one that's been communicating with them. If the council felt strongly otherwise, we could make what other arrangements are necessary.
Know how that person would be selected. But
That'd be our preference, too.
I would assume that the governor's office would make the appointments, and they would look just like they did when Matt Leahy was involved. They would look for the mayor and/or council to make a recommendation of who to appoint. And I'll keep you posted on that. Okay, committee reports. I think we have a report tonight from the Land and Buildings Committee, and we'll recognize the chairman of that committee, Councilor Hamel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a meeting at 6 o'clock tonight to go over the lease agreement with the Mount Washington Flagship Corporation. The lease will expire, the 30-year lease that's going on now expires March 31st, 2017, and they have an option to exercise another 20-year lease on the property. The committee interviewed one of the owners of the Flagship Corporation, and he spoke about what the corporation has done over the 30 years of this lease with maintaining the property. They built a new ticket building that is also used for the Hobo Railroad, along with maintaining the docks and platforms in the area for their business. They also operate and maintain the restrooms that are open to the public from May till November, from roughly 6 in the morning till midnight. They maintain that, supply it, and clean it. They also clean a lot of the shrubbery around the docks and stuff. So basically what the committee is recommending is that we vote to accept their option on the additional 20-year lease, and also to send to the city manager to come up with an amendment to the lease. They're looking for an additional 20 years, so basically it'll be 40 years in all. So what we are looking for tonight is just to vote on the exercise of the next 20 years. And then it'll go to Scott and the attorneys to come up with an amendment to this lease to attach another 20 years if the council so deserves, so wants to do that.
So you're asking for a vote tonight on the city making no changes to the lease for the next 20 years?
Yes.
I got that part. I'm still not clear on the next
Okay.
20.
The Flagship Corporation is asking that we
They'd like an option for another 20.
for another 20 years. It's not in this lease. So we can exercise the 20 years of this lease, and then the city manager can talk to the city attorneys to add an amendment to this lease without having to rewrite it for an additional 20 years. And the,
So long-term, you're recommending another 40 years
Long-term.
correct.
with no changes to terms.
We voted no change, correct. They do pay full taxes on 3 properties, which amount to about $15,000 a year. They are a great benefit to the Weirs and to Laconia, and not only Laconia, but the Lakes region, and the product that they produce over there. It's, they have a fantastic operation. I believe they say they brought in, was it roughly 60,000 people? I don't know, is that a year? 60,000 a year that go on that. So there's quite a bit that come to the community that might not. So we, as a committee, did recommend this, and if there's any discussion on the council, any questions? David?
Councilor Bounds has a question?
I thought we were going to, it was my understanding that there were some provisions relating to things that they had to do that had already been done that we were going to prune out of the lease.
Well, we decided as a committee to leave it alone because it will be cheaper through the lawyers just to do an amendment to the lease that's here instead of rewriting the whole thing. The things that are in here are things that do go back 30 years, that the Flagship Corporation, they rebuilt the ticket building, I guess what you could call it, as he stated back 30 years ago, was basically condemned, and they redid the whole thing. They redid quite a bit of the boardwalk that goes down and the platform where the mount.
Okay.
According to them, they spent roughly $1 million on updates up there, so improvements.
I missed that part, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, well, Council Whitman brought up about, just leaving it in there instead of redoing the whole thing. I mean, it will give history if someone looks at this lease 20 years from now. So,
as I understand it, the motion that you're proposing tonight is we don't actually have to do anything, right? Other than acknowledge that the lease is that they're exercising the option to extend the lease for 20 years?
It's
it
basically
would
that,
be a,
They have to vote on it.
go ahead.
yeah, it's said the 20-year renewal option.
That they're exercising their
With agreeable terms, so.
applicable, because you're not yet tonight voting to extend it 20 years.
Well, in effect, we are asking the manager to work with council to draft
Yeah.
the option.
We want to exercise the lease that's before us, which states the 20-year extension.
And both parties have to agree to that?
The 20-year extension states that with the terms agreeable to both parties, and since the
So we're acknowledging
recommendation of
that
the
the
committee
terms
was
are
not to
agreeable.
change any of the terms, that's fine with them. So we could go ahead, if the council wanted tonight, and do the extension of the 20 years that is in the current lease. I will work
I
with our
just want to
legal
get the
counsel.
wording correct.
Yeah.
So, Counselor Hamel, if I understand it, and we can fine-tune this if I don't have it correct, the lease expires
March
April 1,
31st.
19, or
Yeah.
2017?
Correct.
Okay, so you are moving to,
If you go-
Are we going to do that now, or?
Yeah, it's not on,
yeah, it's not on the agenda, right? So we can do that now.
Okay. Want to make the motion?
Go ahead.
Okay. I move to approve the lease agreement or addendum between Winnipesaukee Flagship Corporation and the city, to add another 20-year option to the provision and authorize the city.
Oh, we're not doing that tonight.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
I think that
We're extending the lease, we're exercising our option to extend the lease under current terms until April 1st of 2037.
Right.
That's what
Correct.
we're doing tonight.
Yep.
as well as authorizing the manager to sign all necessary documents related to that, to put a 20-year option in addition in place. I think we're asking for both things to happen. right? I mean, we're
Doesn't
asking
that
to
come
renew.
back to us at a
The
future
amendment.
meeting?
Well, I mean, I guess from my standpoint, I don't know that it has to, if simply it's adding language to come up with an addendum to add 20 years. We're not adding any new terms and conditions. We're just asking, I think we can do it in one.
Okay, why don't we do this, just for clarity's sake, because it's going to get muddy wording-wise. Let's approve the first motion, then we'll make a second motion.
Okay.
So right now, the
I'll make a
motion is to
motion-
extend the lease on the city's part through April 1, 2037,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Everybody got that?
So technically,
I
March
think it would be
31st.
March 31st.
March 31st, 2037, under the current terms and conditions. All right, we have a motion from Counselor Hamel. Is there a second? Counselor Bullock seconds the motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. Vote is six in favor. Motion carries. Okay, now, so we need a second motion to authorize the city manager to negotiate an addendum to the existing contract to carry through to March of 2057 with the current terms and conditions, and to sign it on the city's behalf.
Well, that would be a
The option,
option,
it's an option.
an option if both parties at the end of the 20 years we just voted on, it would be an option for both
To
parties.
authorize the city manager to draft an addendum to the contract that would offer both parties the option to extend the contract to March 31st of 2057 under the existing terms and conditions,
Now, you have to go back to April 1st.
and to sign the contract on behalf of the city.
You have to go back to April 1st, because
The addendum is to the April 1st agreement.
Okay.
so it's an April
Thank you.
1st agreement through March 31st.
Good to have a lawyer on board.
That was 2057, so
April 1st, 2057,
we'll have to be here to sign that, guys.
I'll be here.
and to authorize the
from
city manager
April-
to execute those
From April
documents.
1st of 2037 to March 31st of 2057.
I'll be
You got that? April 1st of 37 to March 31st of 57. I'm sure I'll still be here,
Yeah, well,
probably sitting right here reading budget resolutions.
You do it so well.
Okay. That motion is by Counselor Hamel. Is there a second? Counselor Bolduc seconds the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. 6 yeses, motion carries, and that provision is also adopted.
thank you.
Thank you to the Land and Buildings Committee. Any other committee business tonight?
Can I ask the city manager a question on this?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask the city manager a
Sure.
question on this? You indicated that you want to put some kind of a, get it before the council, either by the second meeting in July or the first meeting in August. Is there any reason for that kind of haste?
Actually, I think the motion you just voted on makes that point moot at this point. So the authorization was for me to enter in under those terms and sign. So what I certainly will do is get it reviewed by legal counsel, drafted, and executed, and put copies in your mailboxes.
Good answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other committee business tonight? How about liaison reports? Do we have any liaison reports tonight? Okay, citizens request to comment on current agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience this evening who wishes to address the council on any matter that is on tonight's agenda? No one? All right, we're moving right along. And we are to the city manager's report. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included in your packet for the first meeting of the month, we have the financial and operational trends report, as well as the economic development report. I'll start with the financial and operational trends. The first page shows the building permit report for our evaluation of new construction, April 1st to June 30th. So we're through 3 months of the year. First 3 months this year, we ran $5.6 million in new construction value, up $1.1 million from a year ago. We were at $4.5 million. Again, this is one of the components of our tax cap calculation. The year we just wrapped up, we ended up at $31 or $32 million, so we're on an even pace with last year and up about $1.7 million from 2 years ago at this time. On the bottom, in the middle of the first page, as well as the top of the second page, you can see calls both for fire and medical, as well as police, were up for the month of June as compared to the same period last year, and they're also both up year-to-date over the same period year-to-date last year. Property tax collection on the bottom of page 2 or page 35 of your agenda packet. We are just about 80% collection of property tax. Technically, this report runs through June 30th. Property taxes were not due until July 1st, so there'll be a little bit of trickle-in coming over. There are always typically some late payments, so that ought to settle out over the next month or so, but we're in a very strong position with collecting our property taxes. Motor vehicle registration, again, closed out the fiscal year June 30th, and we ended up at the $2,567,000 figure, so we beat our budgeted amount, which was $2,325,000. So again, going back for the last 5 years actually, you can see the trend after we've gotten through the recession from that number falling off dramatically, and where we budgeted anywhere from $1.9 million up to $2.3 million. We've exceeded those numbers every year and have continued to adjust them upwards. I do have one grievance update for you, which is on page 4 of the report, so this is no longer a pending grievance. It just was issued an arbitrator's ruling. This was with the SEA Union, State Employees Association. The issue at hand was use of sick time, in this particular case, to take care of a family member who resides in the house. Our personnel policy speaks to that, allowing an employee to use up to 3 days for any given instance to care for a family member who resides with them under citywide coverage. Some language in this particular contract that had been there for years was a little less clear, and it indicated that employees could use their sick time to care for a family member who needed help, again, as long as that family member resided in their residence. We were looking to stay with our personnel language, which covers all employees. Again, some long-standing language did not play out. The arbitrator did rule against us on that. So in this particular case, the employee was able to use sick time to tend for that. So that is the update there, and we'll certainly look to address that language with this particular union going forward. But as I remind you, collective bargaining agreements need to be negotiated, and just because one side decides it might be a good idea doesn't always mean you have a willing dance partner there. We have the trust balances and the tax increments financing balances on the top of page 5. The boat taxes, I'll just draw your attention to that asterisk there. That number is still to be reconciled for the fiscal year closing at the end of June 30th. That number includes all boat registrations that occurred in City Hall, but we have several boat agents who collect fees out in the community, and those will be reconciling through the first couple of weeks of July, and will be appropriately charging back revenue to the June 30th date as that comes in for us. The second report in your packet is the Economic Development Report. The unemployment rate on the top of page 1 of this report, I'm on page 39, shows unemployment for the month of May is the data we're looking at. Laconia, Belknap County, Concord, Manchester, and the state, all running below 3%, so 2.3% to a high of 2.8% for Manchester. Compared to the same period a year ago, those numbers range from 3.1 to 3.6%. So again, we continue to see a strong improvement in the unemployment rate. On page 2 of that report is the second component of our tax cap calculation. It's the Consumer Price Index Urban, the 12-month percent change. So we're through 5 months of the year right now through the May data. May came in at 1%, so our annualized rate year-to-date was 1.1%. And just a reminder, the annualized rate that we used in the budget that you're looking to adopt tonight was 0.1%, indicative of very low inflation for the 12 months in last year's calendar year. One quick update that isn't quite finalized yet, and I just want to give a shout out to the Finance Department. Between fiscal year ending on June 30th New Year starting July 4th, trying to reconcile Motorcycle Week, trying to enter all of the new payroll information in for COLAs, steps, stipends, change in cost sharing of health insurance. The Finance Department has been extremely busy. We do have 2 small outstanding bills that we're still waiting to reconcile for the most recently completed Motorcycle Week. I can let you know that revenues came in at a little over $155,000, which was up a couple of $1,000s over last year's numbers. I can tell you that both police out of town, police in town, and fire in town all came in under their allotted budgets. And with a couple of small bills outstanding, we project that to the good, we will either be in the area of $3,000 on the low end, maybe up to the area of $10,000 to $11,000 on the higher end. So a small positive overall net, still to be settled out, a couple of final accounts there. So I'm happy to answer questions on that or anything else this evening.
And the balance in the report on page 38 would not include the new contribution?
Does not include the new contribution, and it has been reduced by the amount that we transferred out at the last meeting. So the $63,616 will be increased by whatever the final number turns out to be.
Any questions or comments for the manager? Nothing tonight? Okay. We're on to new business. Call your attention to page 41 of your packet. This is a request to authorize the city manager to sign Keyser Court Railroad Crossing Agreement on behalf of the city. And recognize Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a rail crossing that has been in place for over 30 years informally in conjunction with the WOW Trail construction and the city and the WOW Trail organization working with the DOT Bureau of Rails. This was an item that was brought to our attention that they were looking to formalize the continued utilization of this crossing and have the governing body authorize me to sign on behalf of the city for that. So we will be doing some upgrades to that crossing to bring it up to today's standards according to DOT. You do have a description of that in your background. I'm happy to answer any questions on that, and Kevin Dunleavy is also in the back of the room this evening if you had anything above my pay grade on construction.
That's is that an 80% split, or?
No, this is on us, and we think it's probably going to be in the area of somewhere of $10,000 to $15,000, and it's just to, again, bring that crossing into leveling and making sure that it complies with today's standards.
This is the point where the WOW Trail, Phase 2 of the WOW Trail is going to go from the north side of the tracks to cross over to the south side at an existing crossing that's never been officially recognized.
But we've been utilizing it
Always been
for
there.
city benefit for over 30 years.
Is that a bridge?
informally.
No,
Oh,
it's just planks filling in between the
Tracks?
tracks.
So why isn't the state fixing that? They got,
Yeah, Kevin Dunleavy, Director of Recreation and Facilities. It's actually an existing crossing that is at the end of Keyser Court that access Bartlett Beach. So it is actually not going to be part of the WOW Trail, where the WOW Trail crossing is. That's going to be further down on where the DuPont property is. So that's where the WOW Trail is going to cross back over on the tracks. This is actually a pedestrian crossing that has existed, and has deteriorated. And as part of this, with the WOW Trail entering Bartlett Beach, continuing to have access, DOT wants us to formalize that crossing because it never had a formal agreement. So it's a pedestrian crossing.
is it a dead-end track that's not used, or?
No, it crosses the existing rail line. Keyser Court is a dead-end road that ends at the right-of-way, railroad right-of-way. Right now, there's a run-down set of stairs that basically crosses over the tracks to Bartlett Beach. It's a back entrance to Bartlett Beach.
And that's not going to be where the WOW Trail crosses.
No, the WOW Trail is actually going to enter Bartlett Beach further down. This pedestrian crossing will connect into the WOW Trail at Bartlett Beach once you enter the park.
Sorry, I misunderstood where the crossing was going to be then.
No.
Any other questions or comments before we get to making motions? Okay, motion would be in order to authorize the city manager to sign the Keyser Court Railroad Crossing Agreement with the Save New Hampshire Department of Transportation, Bureau of Rails and Transit on behalf of the city council. Can I have that motion, please?
So moved.
She beat you by 0.03 of a second. Counselor Doyle makes the motion and is seconded by Counselor Bounds. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. I have 6 votes in the affirmative, and the motion carries. Thank you. Next up, under new business, is New Hampshire Municipal Association Legislative Policy Recommendations, Review, and City Positions. Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll start off with my full disclosure that I currently serve as the chairman of the New Hampshire Municipal Association Board. But that being said, it's a great organization. It's in its 75th year of existence. Big celebration planned for this fall at the annual conference. And every 2 years, they have the NHMA legislative policy setting process where we bring in approximately 45 municipal representatives in elected, appointed, and hired roles. So everything's from clerks, finance directors, city managers, selectmen, mayors, councilors come in and break up into 3 different legislative committees. They review submittals that come from member communities all across the state for either ideas on improving some legislature or initiating new legislation to support municipalities. They get vetted through a process, and out of that process, they also get divided into 3 categories. The first one being an action policy recommendation, which means the municipal association will either draft legislation and seek sponsor or work with someone to sponsor it. The second level of recommendation would be a priority policy, so that kind of makes it a second tier as far as staff time allows. And the third ones are standing policies, so we may not be seeking to draft legislation, but if something were to come up that may not be favorable to municipalities, the municipal association has a position to take as legislation and/or amendments come forward. So what you have here is what was worked on through the months of April and May into early June. This is hopefully being reviewed by all 234 cities and towns in the state. In September, we have an annual policy conference where every community has 1 vote, so potentially there can be over 200 members there with a vote, and each community who's a member of the NHMA is able to vote and establish the priorities for our legislative advocacy for the next legislative session. We do have a state election this fall. A new 2-year budget will be in the works, so this is why the process happens every 2 years. So this is the most recent work completed through this process, and again, looking for the council to have reviewed it. If you had any questions, I can bring clarification back to you if I don't have it here tonight. And at some point, and it doesn't have to be tonight, I'm looking for a vote so that we can be represented at the policy conference. And if there's items here that, as the governing body, you don't agree with, we can certainly bring that objection to the discussion on that particular item when it comes up before the whole policy conference group.
Okay, we have an 11-page document that's been distributed, and I'm sure we could all get an A on any quiz we could be given on any of this.
As long as you don't read it.
Maybe with some hints to help us along. So these are final policy recommendations for the New Hampshire Municipal Association directed to the 2017-2018 legislative policy process. And what the Municipal Association is looking for is our concurrence with these recommendations or proposed changes. Councilor Bear.
They usually do a good job representing the municipalities, but I wanted to ask you, Scott, on that first page under legislative principles, number 6, encourage exemptions from state taxes rather than local property taxes when legislative intent is to preserve statewide resources. Am I reading it wrong? I mean, wouldn't we want exemptions?
I think the intent there is to, if the legislature is enacting legislation that is going to exempt taxes, that we ask that they only focus on the taxes that the state collects, so it would be the state portion of the school tax, and not necessarily exempt folks from paying the local portion of the taxes for the impacts that they have. So I think it's to not waive the local property taxes and put more burden on the other taxpayers of our community.
Like, for example, when Senator Hosmer was in here a month or so ago, he mentioned that he was looking at a tax credit.
Right.
And I asked him what that tax credit would be against, since there's very little state tax that we actually pay. And he noted that it would simply be against the state portion of the statewide property tax and would not affect locally assessed property taxes. I think there's also a low-income elderly tax break you get on property taxes, too, that you can
Yeah.
only take against the statewide portion of the property tax. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Balance.
I'm looking at the action policy recommendations, and I'm looking at number 3, building plans under RSA 91A.
So you're on page...
On page 2 of the document that Nancy gave me.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, I'm with you now.
Didn't this come up before, in terms of a recommendation? Was there any legislation that was put forward? And what was the fate of that legislation, if you know?
So the background to this was to exempt certain building plans and construction drawings from being able to be accessed through a 91A request, and it was tied into security measures for the most part. So in other words, somebody couldn't come in who may have less than desirable intentions and request construction drawings and building permits for a high-end property or a property known to contain certain high-end valuables that they may want to understand where alarm systems might be, or where security, or where certain windows and access points might be. So I do believe this was also on the policy recommendations a couple of years ago, and the fact that it's back before us either leads me to believe that we were not successful in getting anybody to sponsor legislation. I don't recall us getting it sponsored and it failing. I'd have to go back and look at where we were 2 years ago to see if it was at an action level, which it is at this year, versus being a priority. So if it was at a priority, we may have run out of staff time. They may have been working on 9 or 10 or 11 action items, and this one didn't rise to the level of getting sponsorship. It looks like this year they've moved it up to an action level, which means it would be one of the ones we would be seeking to move forward fairly aggressively on. So I can check specifically to see whether we got something sponsored and it was defeated, or whether we never got in the ball game on this particular item.
I'd appreciate it if you
I will
would
get back to
do
you on that one.
Okay. I'm almost done, but not quite.
Okay.
Number 7, under the priority policy recommendations, right to know costs and specificity required. My only question would, whatever amendments they put forward, have grafted into them a waiver of the cost for those people who are making legitimate right-to-know requests and simply don't have the economic resources to fund them. That's my question.
I think there's a number of models, and I don't think there's an exact detailed proposal that's out there that satisfies most people. I think New Hampshire, it may be one other state in New England, but we're actually in the minority where most other states have a process for being able to charge for staff time above and beyond a reasonable amount. So I don't think anyone is requesting from the minute one that we've got a staff person going on, we go out and we collect full cost of performing 91A requests. But at certain thresholds of staff time, there's a request to seek reasonable cost. To your specific question as to whether or not there's a waiver for someone who doesn't have the economic means,
Yeah, I don't have
it certainly could be built into it.
I don't have a problem with getting back costs for right-to-know requests that are reasonable.
Sure.
I just have a problem with those people who can't afford to...
I think there's provisions for first hour of research and accumulation time, kind of being off the clock, if you will, and time beyond that being charged at a reasonable rate for, the majority of requests we're happy to fill here in Laconia and most communities I know of without even a 91A request. If somebody walks in, our goal is to come in and say, hey, can I get a copy of X, Y, and Z? And we say, sure, give us a day or two. We do have folks who go through the formal process, and we're happy to respond under the state law of giving them the proper response. Under any scenario, what we do is accumulate the information and somebody can come down and review it at no cost right now. A lot of times what communities are finding is that they go to a lot of effort to accumulate all this information, which may exist in many different departments, in one place, and then the person never shows up to even come down and review it. If somebody wants the city to make copies, we have reasonable copying charges. If it's available electronically, we're happy to send it to somebody electronically at no charge if it already exists in that format, upon request. And if somebody were to come in with a camera or another digital scanning device on their own and choose to make the copies, they're free to do that as well without any charge. So we really try to accommodate. I will certainly keep that point in mind if I see legislation going forward about having had that provision in it.
Would number 9, public notice requirements, eliminate the need to do a newspaper print or something like that? Would that just go away?
That would be enabling legislation, so the key word there would be to allow the choice. So if a governing body said, and this is happening in a lot of communities don't have a local newspaper anymore. We're fortunate we have a couple of local papers right here, but a lot of communities outside of Manchester and smaller communities don't have a local paper, and they end up spending some significant money advertising in some of the larger papers that maybe most of their folks aren't even reading. So this would be enabling legislation that would allow the local choice option to do electronic notification on your website through a weekly newsletter, that type of thing, as well as posting it in public places. But it wouldn't mandate that you had to do it electronically and you couldn't do newspapers anymore. Local choice could choose to select that and work and to advertise in a manner that really worked best for them.
And not finally, but number 10, municipal departments and motor vehicle information. I'm just reluctant to give government entities, municipalities, sort of carte blanche to access that kind of information. I just expressed that. I realize that it's sort of goes with the times, but verifying asset levels, investigations of general assistance. I don't know what it goes beyond. The rationales that are expressed here for supporting legislation to make it clear that municipalities may obtain information in certain cases. I'm just worried about how broad it would be, and what municipalities could do, and who in the municipalities could do it. I mean, does that mean the folks down in the clerk's office who are registering a motor vehicle can access the information? Does that mean welfare department can access the information?
It would just have to be for folks who are applying for general assistance, and I think those details would be worked out through the legislative process. Obviously, these are a little more 30,000-foot policies, if you will, with the details for all those types of provisions to be hammered out. I can assure you there are a number of legislators who come to mind whose privacy and security of your identity are first and foremost in anything that they do. So these things certainly will have their airing and make sure that the appropriate safeguards would be in place.
Councilor Lippman has a comment.
I think the manager covered what I wanted to say.
You still have the floor, Councilor.
I'm done.
You're done? All right, what's the will of the council? Do you want to vote on this tonight, or would you rather delay that? Councilor Lippman?
I'll move that we move it forward and give our consent to these policy positions.
So Councilor Lippman moves that the Laconia City Council on this date
Second.
endorse the final policy recommendations put forward by the New Hampshire Municipal Association aimed at the 2017-2018 legislative policy process. Second by Counselor Bear. Now, any amendments to that would be in order at this time.
Well,
If someone would like to
it's not,
have a separate vote on striking one or more or changing one or more of the recommendations. Counselor Ludman?
Just, having served in another capacity of an association, I think these are broad policy statements that have to be put into legislation. You could agree with this policy statement, and the legislation that's drafted may have idiosyncrasies that you would object to. I think we're trying to maybe engineer something here that's not practical, which is, I think this is a direction which they're trying to do, and if we see specific legislation, even if this policy statement is approved tonight, it doesn't mean that that specific legislation we can take a contrary position to as a council. So, for example, on the concerns that you raised around privacy, if the privacy concerns were such, I don't see it as a
All right.
carte blanche.
maybe I'm misunderstanding, but if the municipal association goes ahead and puts legislation with respect to number 7, right to know costs and specificity required, we're not going to get an opportunity to say yay or nay to that legislation. We may get an opportunity to call our legislature and say, we don't like it, but there's not going to be an opportunity for the council to get impact. Having said that, I'm not itching for a fight here.
I know that you have to check out earlier, and I know there's some other important matters before the council that you want to get to, so it's
Yeah, so I just want to say that I support this motion, but I just want the record to reflect my reservations with respect to those concerns that I brought to the manager's attention, and I'm sure he'll get me some answers in the near future. Or I'm not putting you under the gun. Take your time with respect to this stuff. But I'm going to support it. But I'm going to do it with. I'm not going to try to reserve out particular sections and say don't pass that. I'm just going to support it, having noted that I've expressed some reservations with some aspects of the action policy recommendations and the standing policy recommendations and the priority policy recommendations.
Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. The motion is to endorse the policy's recommendations as presented. All those in favor, please raise a hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion carries, and the endorsement is granted. We're on to unfinished business. First up, page 55 of your packets. Regarding Resolution 2016-19 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend donations on behalf of the city in the amount of $3,535.97 from Joyce Donahue in memory of Kenneth Gooden for the purchase of a scoreboard at the Memorial Park baseball field. First up, the resolution itself is on page 56. First up, a motion would be in order to waive reading of the entire resolution and to read it by title only. By Councilor Bear, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Any discussion? All those in favor of reading by title only, please raise a hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion carries. Next up, I would accept a motion to accept on second reading Resolution 2016-19 relative to authorizing the city manager to accept and expend donations on behalf of the city in the amount of $3,535.97 from Joyce Donahue in memory of Kenneth Glidden for the purchase of a scoreboard at Memorial Park. Councilor Bear makes that motion. Councilor Hamel seconds it. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion is adopted. And on behalf of the entire council, we thank Ms. Donahue for her generous contribution.
Absolutely.
And note for the record that many improvements have been made to Memorial Park in the last year, and we may be making yet another one yet before the budget cycle is out here in the next week or so. Okay. Lastly, page 57, second reading of proposed budget resolutions. Okay, we have, which one is the general fund resolution?
58?
Page 50. First one, number 10,
58.
right?
58.
58. Okay, so we have reached the conclusion or near the conclusion of our 2016 budget process.
17.
We have before us the city manager's budget recommendation,
17, but
fiscal 17. And tonight is the night we're scheduled to have a final vote on the budget resolutions. So if there are any amendments, suggested amendments, that affect any of the budget resolutions, they should be made at this point in time. And I would recognize the chairman of our Finance Committee, Councilor Lippman.
okay. I've got a series of suggestions. The first, I'm going to list out a summary of the items to be reduced and summary of items to be increased in the budget. They net out to 131,000 as pluses and minuses. The first one is with respect to the streets, is to reduce streets by $16,000, to reduce fire overtime by $25,000, to reduce the parking garage debt service by $30,000 and fire regular salaries by $60,000. Adding items to, going the other way, milfoil of increasing by $10,000, the senior center by $5,000, putting $1,000 in for the city flag, increasing contingency by $25,000, having parking garage study for $30,000, and fire radios for $60,000. The specifics of how to accomplish that, one proposal would be to reduce the capital outlay street repairs by $16,000 with the intent of replacing it by transferring street impact fees, and adding as follows: the milfoil treatment, $10,000, so the new total would be $20,000 on milfoil treatment. Do you want line references at this point?
I think for the general conversation, you're okay going just how you're doing it.
For the senior center, increasing that by $5,000 to help defray the cost of meals. So the new total of that would be $16,800, and the $1,000 for the flag, which would be under a line item called public relations. A second motion would be to remove from fire extra duty coverage $8,000, and from fire vacation personnel coverage $17,000, and that's how we accomplish increasing the contingency by $25,000. A third motion would be to remove $30,000 from finance principal and interest for parking garage improvements, and transfer that to administration for parking garage study for $30,000. The fourth motion to accomplish what I laid out would be to transfer $60,000 from the fire stabilization account to fire regular salary reserves, and then transfer $60,000 to the fire regular salaries general fund, and then to the capital administration capital outlay, fire radios, $60,000. I think I've got that. And then in terms of whether I should continue or stop there for a moment.
And that doesn't change the figures on our initial.
Yeah, the net effect of that would
Net
be
effect of
zero
that
on the
is
general
zero,
fund.
right.
Right.
Could I offer just two quick things, Mr. Mayor? So the only thing that would change is we're going to give you a new resolution that's on page 58 of your budget book. And the only thing it'll do is, because we're pulling in $60,000 from this fire staffing stabilization account that's outside of the budget, it's going to increase the revenue line by $60,000, and it's also going to increase the appropriation line by $60,000. So it will still net it out, but we do have a substitute copy of that page for you tonight if the council chooses to go in that direction. But that still nets everything out as far as it's tax cap compliant, and it doesn't change the amount to be raised by taxes or the proposed tax rate increase.
Except when he reads it, he should have that new.
Yes, we will do that if there's consensus on the council to do that. One other item, actually it's two other, they're more housekeeping items that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention in conjunction with adopting the budget. Because if you compared when we print the final budget to the current budget you have, I want you to be aware of these two items. The first one, page I'm going to ask you to turn to, is page 54. And if you look at the very lower bottom right-hand corner, you'll see about 4 or 5 lines up. The overall fire budget is that $4,283,122. You see the couple of items underneath it are the $127,000 that we received from Lakes Region General Hospital, and below that is the $78,750 that we received from Belmont in our new intermunicipal agreement. In speaking with our auditors, they've recommended that rather than showing that revenue coming in there and making the reduction, they're suggesting that we not show it on page 54, but instead show it on page...
Is the summary page?
The summary page, page 3, and we're doing it under
Miscellaneous.
miscellaneous reimbursables, number 39 line item. So that $215,000 figure would not show up under the bottom of page 54 as fire revenue. It would show up under that miscellaneous reimbursable, and that's a recommendation from our auditor. Doesn't change anything any other way than just we're putting it in a different place. And while I've got you on that page, if we go to page 2, and we come down to about the 10th line item, it says war service credits, and you'll see the amount of $438,450. That number was calculated before the final filing deadline was due for those applying for war service credits, so we put in our best number at that point. That number was increased by $14,500. We've made the adjustment now. If we didn't do that, it would be adjusted when we worked with the Department of Revenue Administration and the tax rate setting in October, and they would adjust it to the current number. That number, being so small, has zero impact on anything budget-related, but just in case you were comparing the final version when we print it to the proposed budget, you would have seen that line item being different, and I wanted you to be aware of that.
Go ahead.
So, there were some other items that have been brought up in discussion previously. Levitt Park tennis courts for $78,000, the playground revitalization for $15,000, the Memorial Park softball bleachers for $15,000, the Laconia 125 celebration, which is technically an advance or a loan because we're expecting that to be repaid. And we also had the street repairs in the state school property. I guess what I'm suggesting as we continue to reconcile the year-end carry-forwards and various transfers, I think that the use of impact fees, et cetera, that we can cover these additional items. So the Levitt Park tennis courts, the playground revitalization, and the softball bleachers add up to $108,000, those 3 items. If the Laconia 125 celebration is treated as I talked about, which I'm looking for concurrence on, the $16,000 for repairs, street repairs, is coming from the impact fees, and the contingency amount that we're increasing will be used to cover any early costs with respect to negotiating state school, if that property, should that become available for us to consider. And that's what I'm putting on the table. I tried to incorporate different things that I heard among different councils members in terms of what they'd like to see, and I'm certainly open to other people having different opinions or thoughts on it.
Okay, everybody understand what's being proposed by Counselor Lippman? So we have we'll get to a series of motions here that he can make in a minute to affect that. These are all affect the general fund budget, and
Mr. Mayor?
it is because, as I understand it, because the appropriation, so the items that would be covered by the motions to be made tonight would affect itemization in the general fund budget, but would not affect in any way the bottom line of the general fund budget. The other items that are not included in those motions tonight, specifically the Levitt Park tennis courts, the playground revitalization, the Memorial Park softball bleachers, the Laconia 125th celebration, and replenishing the $16,000 in the street repair budget, those items do not need an appropriation under the current appropriation process because the monies to cover those expenses already exist in reserve accounts. So if we pass the budget tonight with the motions that Councilor Lippman is going to make, those items will not be affected. But we can come back at our next meeting and specifically execute those transfers without affecting the budget resolutions to take care of the tennis courts, the playground, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Councilor Hamel.
Yes, I'd like to add one more under these items that we were just talking about, the Levitt Park and that there. And that would be for repair of, continuing repair of windows at the high school, which they're doing now. They're replacing the upper panels. They're taking the tin out that's buckling and putting in plexiglass. And I'd like to add that in there for discussion at some point for $10,000. They put up, I believe it's $25,000 to do 100 windows, and they still, the school. And I'd like just to have consideration of maybe adding 10 to that so that they could do maybe another 50 or so windows, help finish
Where would
the
the 10
front.
come from?
We could,
Are you talking,
Non-capital reserve.
non-capital, we still have monies in the fire stabilization account left over. So, I mean, it's something we could discuss, that's all I'm asking.
so you're not talking about making a change to the actual budget itself? You're talking about a transfer
Later on, just like what we're going to do with these to
that left
discuss.
78,000 for Levitt in that category? Okay.
So I'd like to have you add that in
So
here.
you'd like to have that considered when we come back at a later meeting to these other items?
Yes, we can put school window repair or...
Okay. Okay, any questions or comments before we get to making motions?
I'm still concerned about the schools. I don't know what, if anything, we can do about it. I'm trying to get my hands around about the discussions that you and I had briefly before the meeting. I'm not sure I'm understanding it. I don't want to throw a wrench in terms of these budget proposals, because, Henry, you did a really nice job of coming up with these recommendations and addressing the concerns of a lot of people here at the council in terms of this, and I don't want to be a lone wolf on that. But I'm still not understanding the money that's given back and not being requested, and I'd like to understand that before we voted on this, and I don't want to delay it too long, and I know that I've got to go soon, so someone help me with that, if you can.
What are you looking for, Councilman?
Well, apparently, there was money that the school board was returning,
The school board had, the school district had a sum of money left over from fiscal year 2016 operations,
Okay. Are they going to
as
carry
they
it?
typically do.
I know. Are they going to carry it forward to their own budget, or are they going to give it back to the city?
At some point, they're going to ask that that be put in a reserve account, or perhaps they already have.
They already encumbered that and did that by the end of the fiscal year.
Okay. So
Okay.
they've encumbered it into a reserve account.
Okay. All right. Now I got that. And how much money was it?
100,000.
100,000. And then additionally, with the budget adoption last year, the discussion was around putting, and I believe it was $50,000 into the capital reserve account, which they had funded at a different time during the year. So within their budget allotment, they moved the $50,000 into a capital reserve. They had requested the approximately $180,000, I think, from the council a month, 2 months ago.
Out of special education.
Out of the special education, and out of that, they were able to put $100,000 back in when the numbers, my understanding is how the numbers finalized for them prior to the end of June 30th fiscal year. So the school made those decisions.
Okay. I think I've got a better handle on it. I'll never understand it completely, so let's not waste our time.
Okay? All right, Counselor Littman, you want to start with motion number 1?
So I would, motion number 1 would be to reduce the capital outlay street repairs by 16,000, and to make the transfers as follows: to 01-489-480-0031 milfoil treatment for 10,000, to 01-489-480-0003 for senior center, 5,000, and 01-431-303, followed by 4 zeros, for public relations for $1,000 intended for the flag contest.
Okay,
I'll
is there a
second.
second to that motion? Counselor Hamel seconds the motion. Any discussion? So we're talking about just this one item, to reduce the budget for capital outlay street repairs and put that same amount of money in 3 different accounts. Correct? Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that is passed. Next.
Motion 2 would be to remove from 01-445-105, followed by 4 zeros, fire extra duty coverage for $8,000, and 01-445-108, 4 zeros, fire vacation personnel coverage $17,000, and to transfer that sum of $25,000 to 01-431-343, 4 zeros, contingency.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. Counselor Bear seconds that motion. Discussion. Okay, everybody understands we're deducting a total of $25,000 from 2 of the 5 lines that contain overtime budgets for the fire department, transferring that to contingency, and as Counselor Littman specified earlier, the intent, although not specified here, is that that $25,000 would be earmarked towards any expenses we might incur in initial work on acquiring the state school property. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, that motion is adopted.
Third motion would be to take $30,000 from finance, principal and interest, parking garage improvements, and transfer that to administration, non-departmental parking garage study, $30,000, and I don't have account numbers there to,
There's not. It's
There's
just-
not an account number.
okay. That's it on that one.
Second.
Second by Counselor Hamel. Okay, we all understand then, we're taking the $30,000 that the city manager earmarked for principal and interest payments on parking garage improvements and repurposing it to administrative, non-departmental for a parking garage study. It's the same amount, $30,000. Everybody got that? Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative, that is passed.
Fourth motion would be $60,000 from the fire stabilization account to 01445-101, followed by 4 zeros, fire regular salaries reserves. And then transfer to 01445-101, followed by 4 zeros, fire regular salaries, $60,000 general fund. And then administration capital outlay, fire radios, $60,000.
Second?
Second by Counselor Bear. Now, do we have the proper, does this motion have the proper audit trail to it now?
Yes, so technically, rather than moving the money right out of fire staffing stabilization to a capital line item for the auditing trail, what we did is we moved it into fire salaries and then reduced fire salaries by the same amount to move it. So we took one extra step, but it just neatens it up when someone goes back to look at the process that we used targeted funds for an appropriate purpose.
Everybody got that? So we're going to end up with $60,000 in the administration capital outlay fire radios account for $60,000. That account previously had 0 in it as an appropriation. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. I have 6 votes in the affirmative. That motion carries. All right, we're still on Resolution 10, which is the general fund budget. Are there any other amendments tonight that any councilors would like to propose to the general fund budget? Resolution?
This would be an updated page 58, and again, the net difference is we're showing an additional $60,000 from what's in your book to the appropriation, and we're also showing an additional $60,000 to the revenue. So again, the net is 0 on this, but those would be the accurate numbers.
Punch some holes.
Okay, we're on Resolution 16, right?
17.
Not 17.
17.
2016-10.
That's the resolution number.
Yes. It says 2017 on the draft, yeah. Okay. A resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the general fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. The general fund, a 2016-17 grand total appropriation of $64,983,258, less total revenues of $26,927,422, leaving a balance to be raised by taxes of $55,836. Let me say the last number again. 38,055,836. A motion for adoption, please. Moved by Councilor Bear, seconded by Councilor Hamel. Any discussion of the resolution for the general fund budget? All those in favor of adoption on second reading, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative. That resolution is adopted. We're on to Resolution 2016-11, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for anticipated grants for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. Anticipated grants, grand total 2016-17 appropriation of $617,904, less total revenues of the same amount, $617,904. Moved for passage on second reading by Councilor Doyle, seconded by Councilor Bear. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting Resolution 2016-11 on second reading, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative. That resolution is adopted. We're on to Resolution 2016-12, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the Special Revenue Fund Motorcycle Week for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. Special Revenue Fund Motorcycle Week, a grand total appropriation of $173,088, less total revenues of the same amount, $173,088. Moved on second reading by Counselor Bear, seconded by Counselor Doyle. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting 2016-12 on second reading, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative. That resolution is adopted. Resolution 2016-13, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the Internal Services Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. A grand total 2016-17 appropriation of $1,048,903, less total revenues of the same amount, $1,048,903. Moved on a second reading by Counselor Bear, seconded by Counselor Rounds. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative. That resolution is adopted on second reading. Resolution 2016-14, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the Water Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. A grand total 2016-17 appropriation of $2,068,865, less total revenues of $2,068,865, plus capital reserve projects of $563,000 even. Moved on adoption for second reading by Counselor Bolduc, seconded by Counselor Bear. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative. That resolution is adopted. Resolution 2016-15, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the Sewer Fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. A grand total 2016-17 appropriation of $3,718,830, less total revenues of the same amount, $3,718,830, plus a capital outlay of $450,000 even. Moved on second reading by Counselor Bear, seconded by Counselor Hamel. Any discussion? All those in favor of adopting Resolution 2016-15 on second reading, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative, and that resolution is adopted. Next up is Resolution 2016-16, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the Tax Increment Finance District Downtown for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. A grand total appropriation for 2016-17 of $183,083, less total revenues of the same amount, $183,083. Move for adoption on second reading by Counselor Bear, seconded by Counselor Lippman. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. And that resolution is also adopted on second reading. Resolution 2016-17, a resolution to make relative to making itemized appropriations for the Tax Increment Finance District Lakeport for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. A grand total of appropriation of $2,360 minus total revenues of the same amount, $2,360. Moved on second reading by Counselor Bolduc, seconded by Counselor Bear. Any discussion? All those in favor of adoption, please raise a hand. 6 votes in the affirmative, and that resolution is adopted on second reading. And finally, Resolution 2016-18, a resolution relative to making itemized appropriations for the Tax Increment Finance District Weirs for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 and terminating June 30, 2017. A grand total appropriation of $29,768, less total revenues of the same amount, $29,768. That should be a comma. Moved on move for adoption on second reading by Counselor Doyle, seconded by Counselor Bolduc. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise a hand. We have 6 votes in the affirmative, and that resolution is also adopted. And I believe
Budget.
that concludes, does it not, the official budget process for fiscal year 2017?
We have. Congratulations.
So
Good job.
congratulations to the counselors, and a broad thank you on all of our behalf to all the city staff, department heads. I'm sure Mrs. Woodeman had nothing whatever to do with this, but we thank her anyway. And, of course, our city manager, Mr. Myers. As far as I know, that's the only other business to come before the council tonight.
I thought there was one more.
Well, we still have the parking thing, because we didn't vote on that last week. But that has now been taken care of because the 30,000 has been moved
Oh, okay.
into the study account. Council comments. Any council comments tonight? No?
Congratulations.
A motion to adjourn would be in order. Counselor Bolduc, seconded by Counselor Bear, no doubt.
No doubt.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Almost made it, Marty. It's a very easy budget, wasn't it?
It was a tough budget, actually. It was a